All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our June meeting, which is a special one because it's joint with the Transportation Committee of GFCA. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Matt Adams from the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. Also want to mention that Eric Forbes from DPWS is on, as well as Natalie Simpson from Supervisor Bierman's office. She's on as well to kind of listen to the discussion tonight. For some background before we dive in, if anyone hasn't been following this topic as closely as we have, the GFCAP committee has been following along with the county's ideas to improve waste management for a while now. Many of you may remember last fall's zero waste survey that the county conducted. And after that, Winnie and I initially reached out to Matt last fall to speak to us about the county's ideas and plans in general. But over the past 9 months or so, the county started to look more closely at one of those strategies, which was the option of implementing a new county-wide waste collection model called Unified Sanitation Districts. So some of you may have attended the Drainsville Town Hall on this topic, so some of this content may be familiar, but this is an opportunity to learn more. And I think more importantly, I mean, you can ask your questions, but also like, have a conversation with your neighbors and let's all kind of understand our current experiences with waste, like what this could do for us, what some of our concerns are. This is a forum for that. So in terms of agenda, Matt has a brief presentation and then we'll open up for questions. So with that, Matt, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So give me a second here. Let me get kind of set up. So can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Tell this. All right. So first, I want to say good evening, everyone. And I really appreciate the Great Falls Civic Association for hosting this event and providing this opportunity for me to come here and share some information and to answer some questions about our future initiative. So with that, I'm going to just kind of jump into the presentation, right? So, all right. So what are we talking about when you hear us say the words Unified Sanitation Districts or USDs, right? So it is a waste collection system where the county would assume responsibility for the single family residential waste collection. For clarity, I want to make sure that everyone understands that single family residence includes detached and attached single family homes and townhomes, including those under homeowners associations. Single family residence also includes residential communities such as condominiums, townhomes, where residents bring their trash to the curb rather than a shared dumpster. And I want to be very clear that the county would be, if this proposal was implemented, would be responsible for the single family residential trash collection for the county. So we would be the owner of the trash system. That's kind of what we are talking about. The service would be provided by private companies. It would be managed directly by the county under contract to the county, and it would be procured through a transparent and competitive process. So the county would go out to the community looking for, contracts with the waste haulers to pick up trash for the residents through a competitive and transparent process. So we would divide the county into multiple areas and solicit contracts for the waste collection services for each of those areas. We don't know how many areas there are. We don't know where the areas are or exactly what those services would be. It is still to be determined in further conversations with the community and the board for each of those areas, for that bid to go out to find a partner that would go out and provide those services. So thinking about it, currently DPWES, or the Solid Waste Group, fully serves about 10% of the county's single-family residents. The model that we are discussing is something similar to what we have already been doing for some of our newer customers, as we competitively procured private trash collection companies to work under contract to the county to provide that service for those new customers. So we've already started doing this a little bit for some of the county's collection, some of the county collection now. And I want to be really clear though, if we move forward with this model, your customer service contact would be Fairfax County. So if you have a question or a problem with your trash service, or if you have an issue with your bill, or if you have issues with your service, or if you want to modify your trash service, or all of this would be done by the county. So we would be your local point of contact. So you wouldn't have to call a call center out in Arizona. You wouldn't be, you would have a local contact that would be managing the individual private collection contracts in those service areas. Really critical to this discussion, however, is that Virginia law requires that the county provide at least 5 years of advance notice before we can actually implement this USD or Unified Sanitation Districts. And so keep that in mind as we keep talking about this, or when we bring up questions later, or as we move through the presentation, that there is a 5-year minimum waiting period before anything can happen, right? So why would we even begin to move towards this new collection model that is 5 years out into the future? What is the problem or problems that we're trying to solve? Well, based on what we've heard in conversations with the community and from the Board of Supervisors, without the model, we have no ability, just like we have no ability today, to limit the number of trash trucks or trash collection companies operating in a neighborhood within Fairfax County. We do not have the ability to regulate the price that the private companies charge for your trash service, nor do we have the ability to compel trash collection companies to collect certain types of commodities that would be necessary for us to achieve the community sustainability goals for residential trash service. So our community-wide Energy and Climate Action Plan, or the CCAP plan, that was developed by the community and adopted by the Board of Supervisors, has goals set for how we would sustainably manage trash in the future. Without the new authority, without the USD models implemented, at least 5 years after the waiting, 5 years through the waiting period, we do not have the ability to do anything beyond what we're doing today to resolve any of those issues. And I want to be clear, we will not be able to make any system-wide impacts in the community's overall long-term sustainability as it relates to waste diversion for residents without expanded authority. We cannot meaningfully impact waste diversion and greenhouse gas emissions from the waste industry without it. So without it, additional waste diversion options, this negatively affects our landfill, which we have, only so much capacity for. There is no local alternative for us to dispose of waste once our landfill is full. The closest private landfill we have is about 2 hours away. So just thinking about it from a long-term sustainability issue, or what we're for the community, this is kind of some of the ideas that we're thinking about. So to start the process, Virginia law requires us to have a public hearing that is scheduled for June 24th. The purpose of that public hearing is for the Board of Supervisors to hear feedback from the community and from the public on the advisability of moving into a unified sanitation district model. Again, keep in mind, nothing can happen for at least 5 years after the board makes this finding. If the board voted to move ahead with the USD planning effort, there is no commitment from the county to take any action. So a vote to start the 5-year waiting period is that and only that. What it says, though, is that we as a community want to take the next step in planning how to solve for the problems I mentioned earlier. We would work with the community over the next 5 years to develop those plans, and then we would start implementing them not sooner than 5 years into the future. Throughout this process, if for any reason the board says that they do not want to move, that this isn't the right direction, or we don't want to move in that way, we are under no commitment to move forward regardless of what happens on June 24th during the public hearing to implement USDs. So let's be really clear about what the actual choice is for the board meeting on June 24th. A no to USD means we are status quo. There are no options for changes for at least 5 years. So that means that the county will not have the option to have any new authority to limit the number of trash companies operating in your neighborhood, to regulate the price at which you pay for trash collection or levels of service, or to achieve the community's established sustainability goals for residential service. Now, if the board votes yes to USDs, then that means, again, not sooner than 5 years, the county would have the option for new authority, if we so choose, to limit the number of trash trucks operating in your neighborhood, to regulate the cost of trash service and services being provided, and would be able to start achieving some of our system-wide community sustainability goals as it relates to residential collection. So that's the only question that is before the board right now is, do we start the 5-year clock to have more options for how we would want to manage waste in 5 years? That's the only question that's on the agenda for the board meeting. Again, we know there are a lot of questions about the types of service to be provided, opt-out opportunities, among other things. And we're going to talk about those briefly, but what the actual service looks like will be something that will need to be developed in coordination with the community and the board over the next 5 years. So what services are we talking about? Well, if we take the next step on the journey, what we can tell you for certain is that if the board implemented the USDs after a 5-year waiting period from the public hearing, so not sooner than the year 2030, the county would provide trash recycling and yard services as a minimum for the base level of service. Those services, much like the ones we have today, will not stop. The other types of services, those that we have looked at with our consultant, are potential services that could be provided to achieve the community's sustainability goals, and could include things like variable pricing based on the size of your trash can, so that you can pay only for what you need. It could include new types of collection for things like bulk items that are not offered by most private haulers. For special items, it could include food scraps, organics, which make up about 20% of the waste that is generated on average in a household. So this is a commodity or a resource that has traditionally been thrown away or disposed of, that could be used and turned into compost that we could use to enrich the soil. But right now it's just being incinerated and buried. It could include new and more convenient drop-off locations distributed around the county for hard to recycle items, for household hazardous waste, for e-waste. So it would be more convenient for the people to bring their items that can't or shouldn't be put in the bins at the curbside. Everyone here is very familiar with the park-out system. We could expand that idea to make it more convenient and provide more opportunities to recycle, remove hazardous materials, and improve diversion. Opt-outs, provisions, like how we could handle requests for folks who do not want the service or want to opt out of unified sanitation districts. Those are still being determined. So again, I want to stress the only question we want is the option for more authority for how we manage solid waste in Fairfax County in 5 years from June 24th, or do we not? If we do, then we figure it out in collaboration with the community and all those other questions about what types of services are being provided, who's going to be in what district, how much is it going to cost. All of those things can be figured out like once we start the planning process. So, and I understand that there are concerns about cost. I cannot tell you definitively what that service is going to cost, what it's going to be inside of that new USD model. It's 5 years into the future. The contracts have not been competitively procured. We do not know the full list of services that are to be provided. We don't know how much they're going to cost, who's going to do them, what areas they're going to be in. There's a lot of questions that we do not know. What we anticipate, and certainly what we are advised by our consultant, who've looked at this and implementations such as this in other parts of the United States, and certainly what we see in our neighboring Arlington County, is that people who have this model or something similar to it generally pay lower prices. It lowers the price per house. If you think about it, the county would negotiate in bulk for single-family residential customers inside of a district and would be able to get the best prices that an individual by themselves going out searching through contracts or searching through haulers or collectors may not be able to get on their own. This exact same principle is what HOAs use to get a good price, except the county would be looking to implement at an even bigger scale. It's kind of like Costco. You're buying something in bulk to get a better price on the individual item. So also, By having collection on a countywide basis, it enables us to maximize the efficiency of the system. Some of the most important concepts in waste collection, there are two things. It's density is king and the idea of a hand on a cart. By basically dividing up the county into specific geographic areas and designating a collector for that area, we can maximize the amount of times that crews are out picking up carts and not just driving past people's houses, not just driving from area to area. They can be consistent and they can be, efficient in collection. This maximizes the collection time. It maximizes the density in which the collection services would be provided, which means, a more efficient route is a cheaper route. It lowers the cost to provide said service. Based on the concepts, we think that the cost would be lower under the USD model for the average Fairfax County resident if 5 years into the future for comparable service to what is generally provided today. There's been concerns about increasing the number of county staff. Remember, we only serve 10% of the county today. And if we're looking and talking about serving 100% of the county for residential services, that's an incredible amount of increase. That's the amount of effort and work that's going to be around that is going to be, it's going to increase exponentially. It's going to be huge. So we absolutely will need more people, even though we are contracting out the services, because we will need people to help us with managing those contracts, making sure that, we're out inspecting those private haulers to make sure that they're operating under the contract that they agree to, so that people get the service they need or the service they want at the level they want it. We need people to go out and inspect and enforce the provisions that we're putting into those contracts. And we need to have people understand what their new levels of service could be or what they are. And, that's going to take a significant amount of education so that people can navigate through the system. So they know, what's happening in their district or their, what goes in what bin. So we have, we can be more direct in our education efforts. The customer service for your trash collection would be local. So again, you wouldn't be calling a call center somewhere else. You would be getting help from the county and we would be coming to help you. So just to be clear, no existing county collection employees would be dismissed as a result of this effort. We need more people than we have today to be able to provide the service at a level that the residents expect. This is why we're looking to add to our workforce to help us manage what is a substantial increase in the number of customers we would be managing, plus the level of service, the level of customer service that we believe is necessary to make this successful. Now, we've heard concerns on how we are going to pay for it. First, from the community, we've heard about, how is this going to impact our property taxes? Trash collection is not funded by property taxes. We charge a fee for service. So the price that we charge our customers for collection services is determined by the cost of providing those trash collection services. And it will remain that way in the future. So fundamentally, future costs for service would depend on the types of service that the Board of Supervisors and the community want us to include in the new USD model 5 years into the future, if we go that way. And it is not coming from your property tax bill. Additionally, we have also proposed a zero waste fee, a new fee, and it would begin no sooner than fiscal year 2027. It would require approval from the board, and it would enable us to have a funding stream that we don't have today to be able to start to build, permit, and operate things like those convenience centers, those convenient zero waste centers. That is what that is for. Our initial estimates are it would be about the cost of a dog tag per house. So about $12 per house per year for us to be able to start standing up those more convenient options and to help us plan for all of the other changes that would be coming if we went down the pathway of implementing a residential USD. So there's also been concerns about the fact that you would no longer be able, as an individual, to choose your trash provider. That's true. That's true under the USD model, that the county would be the provider of your trash. You would no longer be able to pick your own individual trash provider. However, the service would be competitively procured. So there's still competition. Additionally, there would be transparency. You would know what your bill is, you would know what it's going to be, and you would know where that number came from. That is the benefit of having a government-run system. It's transparency. Now, you could pay for the county service and pay for an additional services from a residential trash collector if that's what you choose to do. But your base level of service would change if we go down this pathway 5 years from now. We've certainly heard and seen communications about the impacts, what the impacts would be to local trash collectors. Keep in mind, the contracts would be competitively bid, so all of the collectors could bid on them. However, it is absolutely possible for us to include special considerations as part of the procurement for local businesses or for disadvantaged businesses, consistent with what is allowed for us to do under state law. And we hope that our local businesses stay engaged and continue serving their community if we implement the plan. Contract and collection services is something that we have already been doing. We have served our new trash collectors, our new trash customers by procuring a contract with collection services from the private sector, and both big and small companies have won those bids. So it is certainly not possible, nor could anyone prove the fact that only big companies, only national or non-local companies would potentially win these contracts that we haven't even developed yet, that are 5 years out in the future. It certainly isn't that way right now, today. That is not what is happening. We've heard concerns about the loss of service based on the frequency at which your trash is collected a day. And I can't tell you exactly what those services are going to be under the USD model. Certainly, what we would be recommending, as we have presented to the board and consistent with the board sustainability goals, we would be recommending new services. So from our perspective, we think that this would be more convenient in the sense that you would be getting curbside collection services that you don't receive today, most likely for things like food scraps and other services. We think it's an important part of the waste stream that could be redirected for a more beneficial purpose. But again, the specifics to be provided have yet been determined. So how can you get more information? You can use the QR code. If you hold the phone up to the screen, you can take a picture and it'll take you to the website. Or you can use the internet and go to your favorite search engine and look up Fairfax County USD, and it'll take you to our website. And I want to make sure that people understand that, as I mentioned earlier, there is a public hearing that is currently scheduled to occur on June 24th, 2025. It would occur not sooner than 4:30 in the afternoon, and it would be held in the Board of Supervisors auditorium here at the Government Center at 12,000 Government Center Parkway. All right. So this is where the county has been consistently putting up new information, has been putting up, updates along the way on our website. We've updated our frequently asked questions. When we get feedback from the community, like we're getting tonight, we take those questions back. We, make sure that if there's any questions that we haven't answered already, we take those and post the responses on the website so that people have like a feedback loop, or they get feedback from us about, the questions they've asked about. All right. So with that wraps up my presentation. All right. I'll leave this up here a little longer.
Thank you, Matt.
But
Karen, you had your hand up first, and then we'll go to Tim.
What about the opting out? We have so many communities, so many houses in this community that it's totally impractical to have trash trucks come up our driveway or private roads. And what happens if we want to go on with our going to our place, which happens to be the park out Saturdays?
So when we're talking about, the development of this, we're talking about if, this opt-out scenario, if a group of individuals, or, we haven't worked it out yet, but the idea is that if people want to get out of the unified sanitation districts, that we would come up with that process so to make it so that individuals could opt out of the service. That's the thing that we're talking about. We haven't developed that process, and it hasn't been confirmed that that we have that currently. But what we want to do is work with the community and with the board to make sure that if people want that, because we understand that people have different levels of service that they may need, that they have that option and that the board hears that. That's kind of what we're asking people to do, is to tell the board that these are the concerns that they have for the advisability of a unified sanitation district, so we can work that in if that's something we want to do over the next 5 years.
Well, a total pickup, for instance, at the end of my farm road, there's nowhere to put cans on the street to be picked up.
Mhm.
And have them be safe from traffic,
Right.
getting them for the driver's sakes. So there's absolutely nowhere to put any of these cans. We've been using the park out for 50 years.
Mhm.
It works fine. We would not be happy to lose it, nor do we want to pay for everybody else's trash service and pay for the park out.
Right.
So would have to be something, and I'm not alone in this. We have a lot of people that use the park out because of the same issues. Their roads are not big enough to have a trash truck come down them.
I hear you. I mean, we understand that there's a lot of different scenarios where this stuff happens, and that a lot of people have different, their relationship with trash is very different, and what they're able to do is different, right? There are 310,000 residences in Fairfax County, and they're not all the same. So hearing your feedback about what is important to you, so that we can take that and move it forward, so that we understand your needs and the community's needs, is what drives the idea of wanting us to look at opt-outs, because we're not all the same. I appreciate your feedback. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And
so who I have on my list next? I have Tim, Jerry, and Doug. I see you had a question too. So we'll start with Tim.
Thank you, Lisa. So my question, Matthew, is you mentioned the USD potentially being divided up into sanitation zones, and what would happen? What's the fallback position or the plan B should a private contractor not bid on to provide service in one of the zones? So what would the county do if it doesn't get any solicitations for one or more zones?
well, Tim, that is an excellent question. Right now, individuals we have seen across the community that in most places, a hauler is going out and picking up trash somewhere. Like, even in the most remote areas, some places, there's special haulers. There's haulers that are out there. So we do not believe that there was a place in the county where haulers will not bid, right? We believe that, if we cut the system up in a way that makes it beneficial, or, drives them to that service, that they will bid on it. Now, this is one of those things that we have very specifically said we want to work with the hauling community to make it so that when we write the contracts, that they will have some input into the system to ensure that they will bid on the contracts, right? So I want them to join the process, because that also helps me ensure that they will bid on the work, right? So that's, I don't believe that there's many places that they would not bid on, but we want to hear from them about what they would need to bid on that work. That's that feedback we want to get from them.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem, Tim.
All right, next we'll go to Jerry, then Doug, then John.
Thank you, Lisa. Matthew, thank you for this presentation. I think you really capped it off very, very nicely. I do have a question about cost and being able to, at this point in time, project something about the kind of savings and extra expenses we're going to have. You've got 10% of the county residents now being handled with a sanitation district.
Mhm.
Doesn't that provide the county sufficient data on the costs to be able to extrapolate to a countywide system that's going to be somewhat similar?
So yes and no, right? So it does provide us some, a general idea of what it would look like, but most of our sanitary districts today are relatively small and spread out. It's pretty much the equivalent of like kind of HOAs today, where they're kind of all over the place and they're spread out, and it's based on an opt-in service. So I can give you a general idea, what that looks like, but I can't give it to you like, say, the difference between like a sanitary district of 30,000 homes versus kind of some of our bigger ones that are 1,000 or there's 300. So I can tell you then generally the price should go down with the more people than the more density that we have. But the county's model of 10%, I mean, we have 500 in Reston, we have, 1,000 in Mount Vernon, or 300 in, Mason. So they're spread out all over the place, and it doesn't really give a one-to-one kind of what like an exact sanitary district would look like. Though
So you
we
don't have
did
the
that
same-
worked out. Sorry, go ahead.
You don't have the same economy of scale at the current county run stuff as you would with the whole county being divvied up.
Correct.
Okay, I accept that answer. Thank you.
Thanks. It's a good question.
Yeah, be honest, what we have now seems to work. I mean, I got 2 haulers in my area. I'm not happy with one. I can go to the other one, which I've done. It just seems I don't see there's a problem with what we have now. What I see is you're probably adding $2.5 million on a yearly basis from bureaucracy and adding a bunch of regulations that just aren't needed. I mean, what we have now seems to work. I don't understand why we have to have this, why we have to put the county between us and our service provider, why you have to have all these inspectors, why you have to have a staff of 25 people and vehicles. I mean, you're building a bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is going to build a bunch of rules and regulations that just going to continue to add cost to the trash pickup, which to me is doing fine. I mean, it's free enterprise, it's competitive. Somebody wants to start up a new service, they can. I mean, it's just, I don't see any problem, and I don't know what it is you're trying to fix, other than obviously it's a bureaucracy, and building staff and everything is always more important than anything else. But I don't see a problem.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you giving me that feedback, and about the process and what we're kind of doing. What I would say is that, we can't do, I mean, I kind of talked about it during the presentation, right? There's 3 things that we can't really do. So we can't get a similar price across the board. So I understand that if the service that you may have, like, you're comfortable with the price that you're paying, you're comfortable with the area that you have, but not everyone in the county is that way. We were kind of talking about it previously. There's someone in my office, I can tell you right now, whose parents are paying substantially less than they are, even though they have the same provider and they're right down the street from each other. Because there's no consistency in price. We have no ability to control that price. So it's in my opinion, it's kind of like an every man for themselves scenario, where in the end, the individual resident has the ability to change and move around, but in the end, you're still just negotiating on, from just one house alone. So you still don't have that, the ability to have the additional control or to ensure that you have a better price. That's just kind of my take. And the idea is that we are building all of this services and building all of this enforcement, because right now, I want to make sure that the collection companies are doing exactly and providing the best level of service for you as a resident. That's what I want them to do. So I don't want them to cheat the system. I don't want them to do miss pickups. I want to hold them as accountable as possible so that the residents, the last thing I want to do is take over a trash system or try to implement a trash system that doesn't work for the people that I work for. And as a public works person, I would say that, I'm in the business for public service. I want to make sure that what we're doing is providing a service to the public that is meaningful and beneficial. So that's just my take on it. I don't know if Eric wants to weigh in on that, but that's my take.
Oh, Bill, we're going to go to Doug first because I think he's been waiting for a while, and then we'll go to you, Bill.
Matt, thank you very much for meeting with us here tonight.
No worries, Doug.
I wonder if you could say now that the Great Falls Park Out is an example of a successful model, that it would be the model for having an opt-out under what you're looking at. Why can't you just come out and say this? Because it clearly is. It clearly is. We are already doing all the things that you want to do. We're removing heavy truck traffic from Great Falls byways and private roads. We have a low-cost service. We're more than half the cost of any other service in the area. We are reliable. And we educate our members about Fairfax County's best practices in solid waste disposal and recycling. We follow what you say, and we help people to do what you want. No private carriers provide that. So why can't you just come out and say, yes, the Park Out is exactly the kind of successful business model that you say on your website you're going to be looking at over the next 5 years to find these things? Why can't you just tell us right now, yes, Park Out is exactly what we're looking at for opt-out?
Right. So that's actually that's a very good question, and I can tell you very specifically why I can't do that. Because I am not I'm not the board of supervisors. I can't make that determination because that's what we're asking for the community and for them to give us direction on. Do they want the Park Out, or do they want it to look like that? Is that what they want it to look like from their constituents? Is that success? Is that their definition? Because if it is, the Park Out seems to be, people love the Park Out. So I'm not going to argue that in any way, shape, or form. And if that's what people are doing and people like it and they love it, and it's helping and you're educating, you're doing all of these things like you said you are, I'm not going to give you a stern look in any way, shape, or form. But I can't tell you that that's the opt-out process, because that needs to be developed with the board. And so that's why I can't do it.
Okay, would you at least say that the Park Out it's an example of a successful model that you would hold up as an example of why one size will not fit all under a united plan?
So the Park Out is an example of a system that the residents have used today to provide trash service that has that they have created to provide trash service that has worked for them in their unique situation.
And that meets all the goals of the United Sanitation Plan. Meets all the goals.
Now, I can't tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, and Matt, can I jump in there? And Doug, this would be it's a great conversation. I love the question.
Wonderful.
My understanding, and this is partly, I think, part of our thought process, is we don't have all the information from the Park Out. So we had heard in the Drainsville town hall, there was the nonprofit that is an organization that is, do y'all have like the bylaws or the how it works at the Park Out? Like what services are provided, the provider, the environmental protections that occur with doing a collection like that? That would be really helpful for us to have and review as a model. And I might take it one step further than that in terms of as an example of what could be a zero waste drop-off center for us. And that's why, I'm definitely interested in getting more information. We are from that situation y'all have at the Park Out, because like we heard 320 people or families are using it every Saturday. It seems like if we could get some more information, that might help us and how we're thinking about the plan as over time, if the board does move forward with this. So Doug, is that something you would have available?
Sure. I'm on the board of the Park Out.
Okay, cool.
Seven member. It's a nonprofit community service. Little history here. This started with the county. Okay, this is what the county did for like 50 years. The Park Out was the county service in Great Falls before Great Falls developed into more of a suburban community. And in around 2000, 2001, they said, "Oh, this is too expensive. We're not going to provide it anymore as a taxpayer service." And a bunch of community-minded citizens got together and said, "Well, this is so important to our community. We're going to keep it going." And lo and behold, through privatization, our costs remain much lower than anybody else in the community. You know, prices soared with privatization in Great Falls because it's so hard to get around with heavy trash trucks. So we have carried on the fight. We've carried on a fight that you started, the county started, and I just wish you will save yourselves a lot of grief from the Drainsville district if you will simply come right out and say at the beginning that yes, this is a successful model. This is very popular with the people, and it does all the things that we are hoping that we can do by taking over this service. And with that, I'll also yes, I'm more than happy to share. Sit down and you can meet with the other members of the board. We'll share with you our bylaws. We'll explain in detail whatever you want to hear. But the more I have heard about this, it just puzzles me. Why? I understand, Matt. I understand. I know what you do is hard. I know being a county administrator in these days and time is very, very difficult. But believe me, the county will with the Drainsville district will have a lot less grief and hear a lot less controversy if, simply by acknowledging that the park out is how tremendously popular it is in Great Falls and why it is a prime candidate for opt out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Doug. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to that information, like we're providing that additional information because like again, the more we know, the better we have. There's 310,000 homes in the county. So everybody's situation is a little different. So if we know more, it'd be better. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Matt and Eric. I mean, you get better every time you do this. I mean, your road show is going very well. I did tune into the second half of the Springfield district and saw you there. I have a couple comments and then I'll end with a question. In terms of the person in your office, if people don't exercise their rights in a capitalist society, I got a bill from Republic, and so I went shopping and found fell for $200 less. So I went back to Republic and said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to go with this guy for $200 less." And they said, "Okay, we'll match his price." Okay. So if people are not shopping for their services, that's their bad. I'm concerned that Fairfax County's 10% of the county experience has been at a fixed price model, which you're raising to $610 a year. I'm paying $420 a year, and I think I'm probably on a density-wide basis here in Great Falls at less density. So this guy can do it for $200 less with less density. And that also for Karen Washburn on the, I think she was on the, there was a guy called in at Springfield district. He has a 1,400-foot driveway that a trash truck comes up. His question was, you going to bring a truck up to his door and pick up his trash as he's enjoying right now? I don't know whether that's on your website with an answer yet, but so not everything fits everybody. And firm fixed price, 610, no matter what you look like, how much trash you do, whatever. And I agree with everything Mr. Milks said. And I don't see what you're trying to fix. In terms of USD, we don't need a change in trash collection in this county. And I agree with Mr. Milks that it's not that change to USD is not going to improve trash recycling or reaching the zero waste goal. Two other things. As I understand it, we only have two vendors of recycling that the county has to pay to do its recycling through, and one of them is one of the major providers here in the county. And I just wonder, as a single source or dual source recycling, how you're going to protect the smaller bidders from being priced out by the quotes they're getting from those two that provide the recycling. A friend of mine works in Fairfax City in the trash business and was shocked they got notice of how much more you're charging Fairfax City, as I understood it, for tipping fees after July 1st. And they weren't able to plan for that in their budget at all. So, it's just, it doesn't give people confidence of how well, and it's nothing to do with your fault. As you said, you're doing this CCAP that emerged in the darkness of COVID with very little input from the community. The last time I found out, you've already spent $500,000 with a contractor on USD. And if I understood right, you have no budget going forward for USD. You'll just keep tapping the personal services contractor as needed. How you can put forward a plan and you have no internal budget within the county for the next 5 years. I don't see why it can't be delayed another year for start. Okay. Now, my primary question. So at the end of the Springfield district, I think it was Matt, described the container tagging program.
Mhm.
I had no idea that we had taxpayer paid spies to come snoop in our trash barrels throughout at least the 10%. And when I do the chat GBT, it says that's part of the plan. And I think in the call from Springfield, you said some of those 24 additional people would be inspectors.
Mhm.
In New York City, the trash police carry guns. I don't know if you're planning to arm these people, but could you
No.
walk through exactly what the way I understood it, and I hope I misunderstood it? You have inspectors go out and look in people's trash cans before the trash truck comes along to see if they've commingled their trash. And if they have, you tag it, and then the trash truck just drives by and doesn't pick it up. That's the way I understood it. I'm 75 years old. I would not want to be on the curb dumping a 50-gallon trash can out because I had a blue and white Amazon padded mailing envelope in one or the other. So, and I did not get whether there's a fine when you're tagged. So why would anyone want, and right now, with all due respect, I think I heard the subtext there on our park out is that you could offer ideas how they could do a better job. They really, do they really want the county coming in and telling them how to do a better job at the park out after all these years? I really want to hear a good story on this tagging situation, though. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a lot there, but I'll jump right into tagging. So the idea for tagging is that, as the crews go along, we don't have the trash police isn't flipping the lid and looking at it. As the crews go along, they go and collect the waste, right? So when they look, if there's recycling in the trash, right? If there's recycling in the trash, they don't really do anything. What they're tagging is trying to educate people that the thing that they are putting in their recycling is actually trash that needs to go from the blue bin into the other bin. So this is to help people, educate people on wish cycling. This is help to people educate them on when they do something that they're not supposed to do or that might negatively affect some of the other streams. So for example, say, they're going along and there's a bunch of greasy pizza boxes that are in the recycling bin. They'll put a tag out that says, hey, those pizza boxes, this shouldn't be in there because this is a contaminant, or it could be if they're really greasy, that could ruin an entire bale of cardboard. Because I don't want to throw out an entire bale of cardboard and waste that because someone made a mistake. So I want to rectify that at the curb and educate people that say, hey, this doesn't go in here. That microwave, though it is full of plastic, doesn't go in the trash. I mean, it doesn't go in the recycling. It needs to go to e-waste. Like, we see these things. So it's to educate people to where's the right place to take stuff so that it could be used beneficially like it's supposed to be.
Well, what I heard was you don't pick up that trash container, then they drive by it. Is
So-
that not the case?
So I'm talking about recycling. When it goes into the trash bin, I'm not having my crews go through and dig through people's trash because it's in a bag. And if your recycling's not in a bag, you can see what's there. So that's how the education piece works when it comes to tagging, and the idea of tagging is to educate people on what they're supposed to do. So that way they can move the one item and it's the rest of it's still good. And it's not putrescible. It's not like it's not gonna rot on you.
So if I don't get the last bit of greasy mayonnaise out of my Hellman's jar, plastic, and it's in the trash can, am I going to get a fine for that?
So there are no fines that are currently set up.
Currently,
I think we've talked about this. There are no fines. And I don't even think, I mean, that's a legal question. I don't even know if I can do that right now. I'm not OCA. I'm not the county attorney. I don't even know if I legally can set up a fine system. I just say right now, there is not a fine system for the county or for any of their residents based on recycling. We're just trying to educate people with a tag.
Well, and that I think, Mr. Jake, this is a great line of thought, and that's really detailed. If it was the little mayonnaise that was the problem, that would be a great problem to have.
I
Yeah, so there's
understand.
all levels of severity. There's people that are putting plastic bags that bind up the equipment at the material recovery facility and the recycling bin. Is the hoses, the garden hoses, things that some people think, hey, I can actually recycle this. Let me put it in this container, but it causes problems for the system. So it's really trying to do an education ramp up. And so I think with this USD model is once we do have that direct communication with the residents, then we can help educate more frequently to bring people along on how to do it properly. Right now, in the private sector, they're not as incentivized to do it and make that improvement, right? They're there for a profit. So it's a different driving force of where their education comes in. We've actually tried to work with the haulers. We do now 4 touch points each year just to help with that education to the customers directly for that 90% that we're not overseeing right now. So yeah, Mr. Dick, it's all forms, but it's not as I guess close as you're thinking it would be with a mayonnaise jar.
Well, I did a net benefit analysis of cleaning out my peanut butter jar with hot water, and it decided my plastic jar was better off in the trash than all the carbon I was expending trying to get the peanut butter out of the jar. So people's lives do not revolve around this. That is my concern. And if we give license to the county and inspectors are scored on how many items they find to report, you start having a police state. That's all. I'm finished.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Dink. Thank you. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is to have discussion around it. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for sharing your feedback. I wanted to share an alternative viewpoint from some residents in Great Falls, just to flesh out this conversation. And then I have a question for the county. So I know a lot of you love your trash haulers, and that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I wish the rest of us could say the same thing. I think this system isn't perfect for everyone. And I think what we're trying to discuss here is how could we improve it? And that's the debate. What's the design? How much is the private sector involved? How much is the public sector involved? I think that's where we are. One thing that I've learned since everyone's been talking about unified sanitation districts, I didn't realize the range of prices that people were paying. And especially I don't think people realize that they're at the highest end of the range. You move to a new town, you get a fee for service, and you're like, okay, I guess this is what we pay. So some of our neighbors probably don't realize that they're overpaying for something because there's no transparency. Could we fix that other ways? Maybe, but but that's one thing. People just don't know. I live in a more dense community in Great Falls, as dense as they get here. And we have two providers. So you have Republic going down one side of the street, American go down the other. So you have to make this personal trade-off of, I could pick a cheaper provider and that truck could come just to my house. I could try to convince all my neighbors to switch. It's that trade-off of personal benefits versus community benefits that every person has to go through, and we all can make those choices. I think that's another challenge. And then there are specific cases, like people who live on pipe stems where certain companies don't serve them. I heard that being shared. So these are all problems. I know, the private sector maybe could come in and help, but they still exist today. And so I just want to raise that. Another one is that you were talking about the diversion rates. I think, Matt, you showed at one point a graph in an earlier presentation of how much of the content of the waste stream could have been diverted, like it's because it's food waste or it's recycling, whatever it is. If you don't have the analytics for that, and you can't tell, how Great Falls is doing, it's more difficult for community advocates to step in and help communicate local people. So just raising some of I also completely understand the concerns that people have, and I have a lot of questions too, but I'm just trying to raise some other alternative viewpoints. One question I have that we can brainstorm on is, how do we engage the community? Because some of us are very into this, and this impacts everybody. So what do you have a plan? Like, how do we get more people aware of what's going on, giving their feedback on the design? Kind of what are your thoughts? And maybe we can think about how this might work.
Yeah. Well, wonderful question, which is, forums like, we've been out putting stuff out on the website. We've done the Board of Supervisors environmental committee meetings. We've done town halls. We've done a lot of these things. I've spoke at garden clubs. It's one of my favoriteest events. It was fantastic. I had a great time. And we've tried a couple of different things to get people involved. And I think it's actually a super awesome question to have, people here talk about how they want to be involved. What is the best way for us to get information to the residents, to get both information to them and for us to hear their feedback back. We did that survey out to the community, and there were 5,000 people roughly. It was about 5,000 that participated, which I thought was a pretty good number considering, kind of how county surveys go in the past. I think 5,000 was really good. But if it were me, I wish there was 100,000 people put in that talk about it. So there's something that I think that, hearing from the community, how's the best way to engage with the people here is something we're really interested in, because we're trying a lot of stuff and I want to know what works best for them.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but is it okay for me to start?
Yes, Jackie.
Okay, thanks. So I'm wondering what when you said at the beginning that it was to achieve the community sustainability goal, but you didn't really discuss that too much. I'm wondering if you could expand upon what those goals are that would be the reason we might want to move to this type of situation.
So, all right, well, so the community-wide Energy and Climate Action Plan, or the CCAP plan for waste, very specifically, is a board policy that wants us to try to divert 90% of the waste that we generate today into either away from incineration or disposal, just putting them in a landfill. So that's the goal, right? So we don't want to put it in the incinerator, and we don't want to bury it somewhere. So those are that's the long-term goal, and we want to do it by 2040, which sounds like it's a long way away. But if you think about it, if it takes me 5 years to get a unified sanitation district, now we're at 2030, and then I get that rolled out, and we're going to be right at the door of 2040, right? So that's the high level aspirational goal which is to get to that zero waste or that, 90% diversion. Now, why do we want to do that? The reason why we want to do it is because, honestly, it's better for our communities that we generate less waste, that we put less stuff. We only have so much landfill capacity. I kind of went over it in my presentation. There's only so much capacity that we have locally inside of Fairfax County's control. So we want to make that last as long as possible. And three, that there are resources that are currently in the waste stream that we want to get out and use, but we don't have the opportunity or the ability to get it out. Like inside of the waste stream or inside of the waste now, there's like 120,000 tons of food waste material that we could mix with yard waste or with green waste and with leaves to turn back into soil to put back out into the community and enrich the soil as compost. Like that's a material that currently is just going from the trash can into the incinerator, turned into ash and buried. So, there's just commodities, there's just resources and materials that can be used so that we stop using things one time, that we can start using them more. And, a big part of this is that the idea is that we're trying to get that material out. I think Lisa talked about it. I have this, we had a pretty cool chart that showed that if we gave it our 110% and gave it all we had, you could meet that goal. You could get 90% of the stuff out or close to it. Now, some of the stuff needs to go in there. Like some of the stuff is a hazard. Diapers. There is no use for a diaper. There is no secondary use for a diaper. It's just what it is. It has its function, but there is enough stuff out there that we can get it out and use it again. And that requires us to get that stuff out and develop a market around it. Like glass is an example. That stuff glass did not have a market value until we took it out of the recycling stream, set up its own system and where we could deliver it cleanly and its own source. We developed a market for it. And now instead of paying to get rid of it, we're selling it to a glass manufacturer into Cutlet, and they're turning it into bottles today. That is 100% happening. I can guarantee it. So that's why we're doing it, what the goal is, some of the things that we're talking about, and why it's important that we do it. Because Fairfax County generates in its entirety about 1.2 million tons of waste a year. Now that's not residential, that's commercial, that's everybody. It's about 1.2 million tons a year. That's so much stuff. So that's the idea, is to generate, to get second uses out of some of this stuff.
Matt, you're a very good presenter, but I think when you're talking to people that are making changes, you have to start with that. You have to start with why. What are you doing? So as you go out in the community, it would be good if you started out getting people thinking about that end result and then try to present how to get there with the movement. You're just jumping right into and it's assuming that everybody's on the same page with the why.
Right.
So that would be my input to you. And I guess the other thing is references. Surely you have some communities who have done this, maybe not, but do you?
Yep. There are several communities throughout the United States that have both a unified sanitation district model. There are several communities that have expanded diversion. They have food waste collection. There's a lot of different systems that are out there that people are using to improve their diversion rate. Fairfax County's diversion is roughly about 50%, low 40, well, between 40 and 50%. There are communities out there that have a significantly higher, that are cracking into the 60s, into the 70% diversions. Places, Seattle's one. Austin has a high, Austin, Texas has a high diversion rate. Depends on what you classify as diversion. Places in Florida are doing great.
So as a suggestion on that, the why is important and the proof that it's doable is important. So if you could get some references and talk about when they started and what they attained and those kinds of things, that would be pretty compelling for the community, don't you think?
I think that's awesome feedback. I
I
think that's
want, I also want to reference that we spent 40 days in Italy last September, October, and stayed in about 7 or 8 different locations around Italy with different types of municipalities. And they are so much more advanced than we are here in our community, because you had to separate the garbage, you had to separate the glass, you had to separate certain parts of the glass, you had to certain, but they have embraced this whole sustainability, trying to do the best for the earth. I think we need to do that in the United States too. And I'm glad you're starting with that movement, but I think you really have to get people's buy-in to make that worth making those changes from what they've been doing for 50 years or more.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's my suggestion.
I could not have said it better. That was fantastic. Thank you for that suggestion. And that's definitely something this part of our messaging that we want to move forward. That was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Thanks for being here.
Before we move on to the next question, I noticed there were a few in the chat that maybe we'd want to touch over. M. Everett had asked, with the 10% of residents that we do already serve under the sanitation districts, have you noticed the education efforts paying off, I think, in terms of recycling? And then Bill Dank had asked that if the incinerator produces electricity, and if the purple bin glass recycling, what is the benefit cost-wise? Does the money paid by the company in Pennsylvania,
Right.
who buys the glass, exceed the cost of the county of maintaining the purple bins?
Okay. So, Eric, you want that one or?
Yeah, let me help out. We'll phone a friend on this one. So for the Newington collection customers, the 10% of the community, the first question. So we are actually just following the 4 touch points that we do with all the haulers right now today. We're not doing a tagging program other than for problematic cans. So, we're talking about sustainability initiative and potential outcomes for us moving forward with the USD. Again, those are the additional strategies. And one of them was like tagging and more education and outreach community wide if the board voted to move forward with the unified sanitary district. So that's actually a future strategy to be implemented. So I just want to make sure we're not doing a huge tagging program for our existing customer base. We do the 4 touch points, which we do throughout the community with the private sector. They do that as well. And we do tag problematic cans. We've had some pretty bad situations with some customers. Some waste just can't be collected that way, medical waste, things like that. So we have to be able to communicate with them to make sure that those residents know where to put that material safely, so it doesn't impact the people doing the collections. So just want to be clear on that. We do have some good news though, in terms of our recycling contract. And Mr. Dink had asked a question about who serves as the recycling processors for Fairfax County residents as a whole. And there's 4 companies, they're all privately held, that have material recovery facilities. We actually contract with one, and that contract's available online if you wanted to check it out. It's called the Enviro Solutions contract that we have. And as part of that, we actually wrote a provision in there where they do a waste audit or characterization for the recycling that we get. And it actually sets our rate for how much we get in terms of a rebate, because the recycling system works that there's a processing fee that everybody pays, and then there's a rebate based on the sale of material. So the quality of the material that's in that can, it gets separated out at the recovery facility, and they put like bales of cardboard, like Matt was talking about, together, and then they sell that on the market. They take bales of plastic bottles and jugs, they combine them together, and they sell that on the market. Aluminum cans, same thing, bale it together and sell it. The county and the people that are doing the collection get a rebate on the quality of the materials that are sent to that processor. And so we do have good information on that improvement over time with education. And it would only get better if we were able to do more outreach and education to show that the benefits to the resident that's putting that material in the can on, it does actually have an impact on the ultimate price of the system. Now that's very similar to the purple can question on glass recycling. So for every ton of glass that was in the recycling blue can, when we were doing it back in 2018, before the county asked residents to stop putting glass in the recycling bin at home, every ton of glass that was in that system cost to get processed, and then it had another cost for disposal. So I'll say it again. It had a processing cost and a disposal cost. So it wasn't processing and then they were selling that glass that was in the recycling system for a benefit. It was going in some cases to what's called alternative daily cover at a landfill, where they bury trash. And this is in like Southeast Virginia, Southwest Virginia, where they have to bury trash every day. And they used it for that. But ultimately, all that glass that was in that system was ending up in the landfill for the rest of its life. When we did the purple cans, it did a couple of things. It removed, for every ton that we collected in the purple can, it removed it out of the recycling system and that cost for curbside collection, because now that ton of glass is no longer getting processed and no longer getting disposed of. So that's a benefit for the overall system and how it operates. The purple can, once we actually started by crushing it and using it in projects. So we had a number of different projects we were using the crushed aggregates in from the glass. Well, our pile got to a large enough size that a company called Strategic Materials reached out to the county and said, "We saw y'all on the news. We saw your system and how you're collecting it. We want to come take a look at your glass." They actually offered us money for the glass. And it changed from us processing to us selling whole glass that was collected in these purple cans. I think the other question was, does the money paid by the company in PA who buys the glass exceed the cost to the county of maintaining the purple bins? So yes, when we're talking about maintaining the purple bins, I think it does pay for that cost. Now, it doesn't pay for the collection. That's a whole different thing. But the offset on the entirety of the recycling system is the benefit that is the cost savings, and it's significant. So, so glass being separated and being sold, it also makes that glass infinitely recyclable. So you can actually go to the store and buy Fairfax County recycled glass containers today from our local grocery stores. We couldn't say that 6 years ago. So, and that system can happen over and over. So the glass system, that's a really good thing. It's a great example, like Matt was saying, of diversion that our community was successful at. In terms of the waste to energy facility, it does produce electricity by nature. That's why it was built, constructed. It's enough power for about 60,000 homes per year for the amount of waste that's burned at that facility. So it does provide a benefit above and beyond landfilling, and that's why the waste energy facility is a continued strategic partner of the county and will be going into the future. Now, the challenge with that facility, though, it was built in the late 80s and started operation in the 90s. So if we think about how long buildings last and infrastructure lasts, everything has a useful life. Now, we anticipate that useful life will extend into the future. But as a community, we got to think about long-term resiliency for our waste system. And this is what Matt was talking about with the amount of landfill space available that's available in the community or in Virginia, other places that we can haul material to. So doing the diversion, doing this program where we're talking about zero waste strategies has actually helped our community's resiliency in the long run. It's not just about greenhouse gas. It's about all the waste that we're going to be generating for generations to come. So just wanted to kind of tie it all together. There's a lot there. But the waste energy facility does produce energy. Purple Cans is a great success story for glass, and it has helped reduce the cost of recycling for the community. Thank you, Natalie, I was trying to figure out how to get those questions answered. I didn't want to type a bunch, so I appreciate you putting them out there. Thank you for the questions.
Jennifer and Peter, you have a question.
Thank you, Lisa. I have the zero waste impact slide from Fairfax County, and I was wondering if it would be okay that if I shared on the screen, because I have a question pertaining to this slide that Jackie referred to. Okay, can you see my screen with the percentage?
Mm-hmm.
This is for Eric and
Yep.
Matt, thank you very much. This, just to note, this is my third presentation on the Unified Trash Sanitation District. So I learned something every single time. Number one, what I learned was that it was very important that I joined the Great Falls Park Out, and I'm delighted to say that I received my hang tags this weekend and made my very first trip, and it was delightful. Looking at this slide and comparing the Unified Sanitation Districts plus pay as you go, reducing or diverting 6.9% of waste as an estimate, I'm wondering, because of the controversy, and one would have to say the almost overwhelming opposition that I'm hearing from the community, and that's all of Fairfax County, why Fairfax County would not up their game in percentage for number 2, education, engagement, evaluation, and enforcement, coupled with source reduction and zero waste centers and construction and demolition recycling, because those 3 items totaled together would be almost a 20% diversion. Whereas the estimate for unified sanitation districts at this point is that 6.9% for the entire county? Because what we're talking about right now is only the residential single family. So is that a smaller percentage, or will that percentage increase if you were to include multifamily and commercial? That's question number. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so that is separated out. My husband just nudged me. So I just answered my own question. So that's the first question. Well, first, please answer address the education and the source reduction, because the comment that I'm hearing almost universally is there's this CCAP trash tax, that we talked about in the last meetings. It's estimated to start in 2027, perhaps, that it would be $12 a year, and then it would go up from there. But if you look at that as what it's been described to me is that money would be used to fund zero waste centers. So why not go with a problem that is really big at this point, in my view, where to take the stuff that you can't take to the park out, or it is problematic to take to the landfill itself, that could amount to a significant diversion of waste.
Okay, so this slide, so I presented on this slide at the Board of Supervisors Environmental Committee, and when I did present on this slide, when I talked about it, so this was part of the 20-year solid waste management plan, where we were talking about all of the strategies that we would possibly need to implement to go out and to reach that 90% goal. This is that 90% goal that we were talking about earlier with CCAP. To get to 90%, we have to do all of those things. We have to do all of them. And then when I went through and I was explaining, I believe, I don't remember which supervisor it was. I believe one of them asked a very similar question. And they said, well, why not? Why is it only 6.9%? Why is it so small? And I said, and I explained that how this chart is set up is that everything stacks on top of it, the next one, because without the one above it, or the one that's that's above it, the rest of them fall off. Like the delivery of said options falls off. So for example, in this scenario, without a unified sanitation district where we can have organics or to require organics at the curb, then the Organics for All recycling initiative drastically reduces, because then the only place for residents to go and dispose of their organics or their compostable food waste or any of those other things are at a facility. So that number goes from 4.2% drastically shrinks based on the 20% of the population that really wants to do this stuff, as opposed to making it accessible for everyone. We're only making it for like people that want to do the program. The same thing with the zero waste centers. Without having the stuff on top to be able to make sure that individuals are going out and have options and have the ability to have a way to get rid of their waste. Having a zero waste center, that there's no driver for them to want to go use it. Why would you want to go separate your waste at a zero waste center when you can just throw it in your trash bin? You've got 95 gallons all day long that you can throw in there that's picked up twice a week. There's no incentive for people to go and do that, to go to the zero waste centers, other than the fact that they care about the environment. And we see that there's usually about, there's a 20% of the population that would actually participate, while everyone else would just throw it in trash. So the idea is, in this slide, everything is built upon the next one, because the ones next to it go, without the one in front of it, everything else goes down. And when you talk about the education, engagement, evaluation, and enforcement piece, that's exactly what we are attempting to do with all of those positions that we talked about previously. The 24 positions is outreach staff, so that, Natalie in the Board of Supervisors office has a zero waste specialist, or has a, one of our outreach specialists assigned to that area, so that they could learn what happens in Great Falls, what the needs are, and provide what, feedback specific to them. And it's to get enforcement so that we can go out and double check haulers and go out and double check to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's to evaluate so we can set aside and do more in-depth analysis on the waste system. So we can do more like waste characterization studies, or, studies that are at the recycling facility. So we can go to Great Falls and ask the truck that the park out has, so, hey, pull over here, and we'll empty the truck, see what was in it, see what your recycling rate looks like, what your contamination rate looks like, find out what's there, what people are confused about, and then provide education based on the things that we just talked about from the education staff to evaluate locally what's happening. We just don't have the personnel or people to be able to do it today. That's exactly those 24 positions that we're talking about. That's what those will do. So that's why the plan is kind of built the way it is.
So you're saying that you would not attempt to use a zero waste fee. Well, we will lose the word tax at this point. The zero waste fee, as you've described it, and to educate and possibly build zero waste centers and rely on education and desire before you implement a mandatory unified sanitation district?
So what I said was that to maximize the efficiency of those things, to maximize it, that all of those things need to be stacked together. Now, we still could use a zero waste fee to start, if, say unified sanitation districts doesn't happen, if people still want to invest in zero waste centers or invest in some of these other diversion activities, you just won't see the same level of diversion or participation or, into the system. But we could still move forward with a zero waste fee to help provide diversion for, easily, more convenient e-waste drop-offs, or, pilot programs for composting in Great Falls, for example. Like, those things can still happen. It's just they're not as effective because we're looking at the system holistically, is what I'm trying to get across.
Okay, thank you. One more question and then a comment. The consultant that the county has spent over $500,000 on already, what is their success rate in presenting a plan such as this for other counties that have implemented such plan? And two-part question, if they don't have a success rate that you can provide to us, what do you have copies of successful plans from other counties? I know that in your other meeting, you mentioned Montgomery County, but I've since learned that all of Montgomery County is not included in a unified sanitation district. In fact, the rural portion of Montgomery County does not participate. And this is more of an urbanized situation. And I think that a lot of people out here in Fairfax County, especially in the rural of Great Falls and in the Clifton area, we're looking at people with larger lots and longer driveways and specialized services. So we're wondering, again, perhaps if there should be some sort of a pilot program that would begin in some of the more urbanized areas of Fairfax County. So that's another question.
So I mean, those are all perfectly good. I mean, I think there was just a lot. I mean, there was some comments in there, but I mean, that's perfectly good. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. That's something that we would think about doing in that 5-year window when we get direction from the board that says, hey, we've heard from the community. We think that this might be a good idea. Not that it is, not that it absolutely will solve that we'll have all of the planning or processes or have everything locked in. It's just the idea that, hey, we think this is worth the investment. The potential benefits to the community is worth the investment of looking at.
Thanks, Matt.
And-
I'm
Oh,
sorry to interrupt, but did you have, if you don't have an answer for the success rate of the consultant and that information so that we can actually get the plan success rate or details of that, we can certainly reach out by email if that's more convenient, if you can't answer that right now.
Right. So I can tell you right now, I don't know right off the top of my head. That planning effort was about 1.5 years ago. So, but as part of their proposal, we had asked that they provide, examples of other municipalities they've worked with. I mean, the company we're talking about, or the one that did Lion's Shares RRS, which is Recycle Resource. I don't remember. I just remember calling them RRS, and that they're like, they've been in the business so long that they're instead of at Gmail, that's just at Recycle. Like they were the first ones to have it. That's a thought I always remembered. So they've been at it a very long time, and we can provide that information and put it up on the website in the frequently asked questions for sure.
Thank you. I would appreciate it.
There you go. I think Eric put a copy.
I
of
just,
it.
Jennifer, I just dropped it in the chat for you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
So you could take a look at their website. Yeah, they were part of our consultant team. CDM Smith was our main contractor, and RRS was their expert sub contractor for this effort in particular.
Right. And just thank you. One last comment. Earlier in the program, Bill Denk had a question about fees and authorities and fines, et cetera. And what I'm reading is that the specifics of Chapter 109-2-1 establish baseline requirements for households and provides authority to enforce compliance with these requirements, potentially with civil penalties. So I believe there is the ability to impose fines that already exist in Chapter 109-2-1, but perhaps we'll get clarification of that. But thank you again. I really appreciate the information, and I'll follow up online in writing by email. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Perfect.
Jerry, go ahead.
Lisa, I think Doug Harbrecht has had his hand up longer than I've had mine. Why don't you call him in first?
Oh, I didn't realize, Doug, do you have another comment?
I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't want to jump in front of you. If you want to go ahead, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, my question is short. Eric, this is for you. I see what you put in the chat. Does this include the deliverables that you got from whoever the contractor was that you paid $500 and some thousand to?
Yes, sir. So that initiative, the project itself was for zero waste and 20-year solid waste management planning for the county. So there's a number of subtasks associated with it. The Unified Sanitary District Strategy was one of the strategies that this consultant put forward in that plan development. So there was a number of strategies. We looked at the spreadsheet, that view with all the color on the chart. I think that was presented by Jennifer earlier. That was one of the outputs, one of the deliverables from that consultant of how do we get to that 90% diversion. So they were really hired to do 20-year solid waste management planning for our community. So long-term strategic plan for Fairfax County, zero waste goal from CCAP was the main driver for that. In the Unified Sanitary District, the conversation we're having now, the decision for the board on June 24th, and that is really a foundational element for the other strategies to be implemented over time to achieve the waste diversion goals that were identified by that consultant. So yeah, it wasn't 500,000 for just the USD effort. It was a part of a bigger strategic planning effort for the community for our long-term sustainability for solid waste management.
And their deliverables are included in this project gallery that you gave us a link to?
No, sir. That's just their website for their history. The question was who else they worked for, I think, or something to that effect, or where they were successful. So I just put their projects page from their website, RRS, the sub, directly.
Can we get the deliverables from that? I understand the scope of the contract works we've done so far is different than Unified Sanitary Districts, but it's possible to get those deliverables?
Yes. Yes. They're publicly available documents. I don't think we have them all posted on our website. But if you'd like to read through them, they're technical memorandums for the most part. We don't have a final plan that's been adopted by the board or anything of that nature. But there is a series of technical memorandum that they produced for the project.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, do I need to send you an email and say, send them to me?
That would be great
That would
if
be
you could send
helpful.
the email.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, it's 8:30, but if there are any other lingering questions, I know we'll have a lot of questions if this moves forward. Anybody else like to speak?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Lisa.
Yep.
Go
ahead.
I just, again, thank you very much, Matt and Eric, for doing this. And I know this is above and beyond the call of duty. And I just want you to know, as a citizen of Fairfax County, I appreciate it. I just want you all also to know that when people come to the park out with their recyclables in plastic bags, we physically go over and we make them open their bags and dump it out into the recyclables, so it's plain. There's a big sign when you pull up not to do this. It's in all of our newsletters, and it's always on our website for people to do. So again, the example of the education that we give. You want engagement and feedback. I've been listening to a lot of it from the park out members, and here's my 2 cents. I'm retired now, but I spent a lot of time around policy and politics. And if I may, I'll do this very, very briefly. But what everybody hears is actually a lot of the things that you keyed on tonight. Number one, the county wants to take over the sanitation system. Number two, the county wants to decide who your carrier is. Number three, the county wants to, and before this 5-year period is up, the county wants to assess a $12 fee to start solid waste disposal. Oh, and also we need more people now. We need to staff up now. We need to build up our facility, our workforce now. Okay. And you know what people are hearing there. That's not a, and the problem is you don't really know what you're going to do. I mean, we have 5 years and there's no vision of what's going to look like at the other end. Real quick story. I have a friend in Arlington County. Believe me, he's not a trash aficionado like I am. But one night he just went off on a thing for 45 minutes about what a wonderful system that Arlington County has. So excited about the fact that they burn the trash and create electricity for homes in Arlington and all these great systems that are in place. I would urge you, start with the end in mind. Start telling the story of the end in mind. You started to do it here. Eric, you did it. Matt, you did a little bit of it. Well, what's the end in mind? How is this going to improve everybody's life in Fairfax County? That's where you need to start it. I know you can't say what it looks like yet, but I think you have an idea of what it is going to kind of look like. And there are other models out there. Talk about where other models have worked. It's my 2 cents. I'm just trying to be constructive here. Thank you very much.
Doug, I really appreciate that. Like I said, when we get that feedback back, about what people want to hear, like, what we've talked about. How does it get to them? How does it get back from them to us? Like, that whole loop is one of the most important things that can happen in local government. And I appreciate that feedback, sincerely. Absolutely.
So on that note, maybe we could end with, what is the best way to reach out to give more feedback? I think you had a public input email that we've been directing people to up until the public hearing. There's the public hearing, and there's a particular process if anyone would like to provide testimony there. Can message Bierman's office, message the board of super, like there are different pathways. Are there any that you suggest, Matt and Eric, right now for people to channel their excitement?
So right now, I mean, there's the public input one is the best way for us to, to consistently send emails in. Like, we've gotten a lot of comments that we have generated and turned them around into, questions and put them on the website. So that way people can see them. Now, you can also, like, with some of this stuff, you can email, our trash mail. And that's another way to send that in. And it'll come to our pretty much our customer service center, and it'll get sent to one of us, or it'll get added to the list of things that the FAQ, which also could provide some feedback back, as we will answer, hey, this is the answer, thank you, and we'll put it on the website. So that's two ways to do it. For solid waste. If people are looking to give feedback to, I'll let Natalie speak for how they would, if they want to reach out to their board member, or if that's something how that would work. I don't know.
Yeah, you can definitely reach out to Supervisor Bierman's office. I'll put the email in the chat. It's drainsvillebos@fairfaxcounty.gov. And we'll make sure that all comments are documented for public record, and that they'll be shared with the appropriate staff.
Great, thank you. And we'll share this information with the people who can attend tonight as well. All right, Winnie, do you have any comments? You're on mute.
Thank you. Sort of what I'm hearing tonight is that it doesn't seem to be broken. Why is the county wanting to fix it? And maybe if it got turned around, that for the county to share with us why it is broken and why it is important to fix it for our future, for our sustainability, and to reach the goals that will make all of our lives better and get engaged for our children too. So I feel like you guys are, I can't thank you all enough, because you've got a really hard task. And bottom line is, everybody cares about their trash and out of sight, for most part, out of mind. And to make that a personal commitment, and to make something a personal commitment where they're engaged, is a trash thing for sure. But maybe something like a helpful video that shows where we are now and where you want to be, for all of us to make it like a rah-rah. We want to get there. It's important to all of us. Lisa and I talked, we have talked so much trash over the past number of weeks. We can fill up a lot of trash cans. But I was wondering, is there any thought in postponing this decision on June 24th by the Board of Supervisors? Because I'm sure you're getting a lot of comments, and a lot of what you're saying, it's broken, you want to fix it, but we don't understand why. And has there ever been any thought about that possibility to give you all a little more time to maybe come up with a basic question? Why is it important to fix? I think Jackie said it quite well. Start there to get the buy-in, to people want to participate, that they all will feel better for themselves too. I say start with the kids. They'll get parents to buy in. My kid even growing up was like, why are you throwing that in the trash? But particularly young people, work through the schools. I mean, that's the best way to get parents to improve. You guys are young. You probably got young kids. But anyway, I'm probably speaking too late about this, but Lisa and I have wondered, is this something that could be maybe postponed a number of months? To when maybe it's even, you feel like you're more ready? Because it would be a real drag to get a total no. I mean, I don't know, maybe. And then we're still in the same boat, aren't we? And it's
Yeah.
gonna have to come up again. Anyway, thank you very much. And you two are amazing. Thank you so much for, I met Matt back in January, and God bless him, we're still on this. It's a hard job. So thank you. And Eric, we hear your name all the time. You are truly the trash man. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate Matt. And thank you all for the time this evening. It's been great. Thank you for the
Thank you.
feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt and Eric, and thanks again, Winnie and Lisa, for coordinating this.
Glad you could be here, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
coming and sharing. You all county can leave. I think if anyone wants to stay on to
I think Doug had one.
membership to debrief, that's fine. Otherwise, people can feel